Hi guys, welcome to FanChatTV. We're doing our third podcast now in the series. This one is all centred around the comments by Alan Shearer, the controversial comments that he made recently to say that Sergio Aguero was pretty much the top foreign player to have ever played.
All time in the Premier League.
All time in the Premier League. So obviously we've got our differing opinions on that. I know it's really riled up yourself, David.
Yeah.
So 100%. We're going to discuss that basically.
I personally don't understand why you're so riled up about it. I think it's on the shout.
Yeah.
But obviously we've got all of our statistics together on these sheets of paper here.
We finally become prepared.
I remember like David actually giving me a call and we have a WhatsApp group together and stating his like literal disgust at Aguero being
100%.
Furious, he was furious.
Being quoted as the best ever foreign import. So all of us have got some stats to back up who we think is. So I don't know who wants to jump in.
I'll probably go first on this one. I actually, funnily enough, I took about 20 takes on my own phone the other day when I was travelling to Wapping to try and state my case on why
rebuttal
on why Alan Shearer was wrong in every sense of the matter, and I came with a few points, and obviously I wrote down my players today. Now Stuart Pearce came out, Stuart Pearce, and also just recently Peter Crouch.
Yeah, I saw that.
Said that Thierry Henry was the greatest foreign Premier League player.
Thierry Daniel Henry.
Yes. Thierry Daniel Henry was the best foreign Premier League player of all time, and rightly so. Based upon stats, based upon just the longevity at Arsenal, based upon goal scoring ratio, based upon assist ratio, just all round.
Well, he was basically Mr. Arsenal.
He was Mr. Arsenal, and rightly so. I think the thing about Henry for me that Aguero doesn't do. There's one thing that he doesn't do. Henry could pick up the ball literally from the centre of the park.
Yes.
And glide past 5 to 6 players consistently every single match and destroy teams single-handedly.
More of a poacher, really, isn't he, Aguero?
Exactly.
But I would sort of say in like the other argument towards Aguero, it's not something I haven't seen Aguero do.
He can do
within his reality. I mean, I've seen him tear apart some of the best United defences of that period, Liverpool defences, Arsenal defences. I think he's been an incredible,
it's a reasonable shout.
Success. Like because Man City have had two pretty like billionaire owners.
Yeah.
So there's like a real sort of sense of a two-part to Man City's success.
Yeah, definitely.
As coming through.
Yeah. And I think the thing we're forgetting with that as well, obviously, he's not finished his career yet. I think probably all the other players that we're going to talk about have actually come full circle in their careers now.
Yeah.
So with Aguero, again, it's not my choice either, but I'm just trying to put it from that point of view. I can see where Shearer's coming from.
Yeah, definitely.
Because as you mentioned, City haven't really achieved what they've set out to achieve, everything as of yet. They haven't won a Champions League, which we know they're desperate to do.
Yeah.
If Aguero done that, and you saw him lifting the trophy Gerrard style,
yes.
then could we really argue that he's not in that bracket?
Yeah.
So I think he needs time as well.
I honestly think, also for me, even though you said that the greatest defence is probably, Aguero has played against greater defences, I'm not going to deny that, but Henry played against probably the best defending period of the Premier League.
I did say great and not greatest.
Yeah, exactly.
So
one of the greatest periods. But honestly, for me, if Aguero came up against, we were debating the other podcast about Vieira and Keane.
Yeah.
If he even touched them, on the field, he would have got bullied left, right, and centre. For me, he would have got bullied.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but like with Henry, they couldn't touch him. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that you would have to actually say why. Like you can conceivably say Henry was the best because like a lot of them, like I've seen a lot since Alan Shearer's brought this up. By the way, there's been a lot of big like names coming out and saying their pieces on it as well.
Bergkamp as well,
But Henry on the football, the grace, the sort of like the speed at will of changing gear, the finishes, the making people look stupid.
The artistry of it.
I can't argue with you, David, on the fact of you saying Henry is.
Yeah.
But I can argue with the stats to say that there are arguments for other people.
Yeah.
I.e. Aguero. So there's no disagreeing here.
Yeah.
I'm basically doing this podcast to announce.
And also another argument is that football has become faster in recent years as well.
Yeah.
Like in the past 10 years, we've seen football glide, and the player that stands out for me for this kind of era is Cristiano Ronaldo.
Cristiano, without doubt. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Even though, for me, like, I've always, debated, is Cristiano Ronaldo one of the greatest ever players to ever exist on the football pitch, considering his goal scoring record for Real Madrid?
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, exactly. In likes with Messi, in likes with, Ronaldo, phenomenal, what we mentioned last time, in likes with, probably Maradona from the previous eras. But in the Premier League, I think Ronaldo, because he was in his kind of early tenor in Man United, he didn't. He shone like incredibly.
It was like an adolescent period, you could say.
Yeah.
It's the unraveling came later, but the birth of Ronaldo was definitely under Ferguson's
stewardship. It was under Fergie. Last 3 years, he really come alive in that respect. And when you did see him as a skinny sort of when he first turned up to Man United. Yeah. You saw the ability that he had, but I've seen that a million times. I've seen that in Nani. I've seen it in other players like that.
Sure.
But to develop
equally as skilled.
There's an ilk, isn't there?
Exactly. It's a determination to literally be the best player on the planet, and I think he has undoubtedly achieved that. You can argue maybe Messi and all that, but obviously he's up there, isn't he?
And another player that we were discussing as well just recently, with Ronaldo, even during the later years of that kind of Man United period with Ronaldo, was Van Nistelrooy as well, who had an incredible goal-scoring ratio per game than probably any other player in Premier League history. So, Van Nistelrooy is up there, and we kind of listed, I think, a few players as well. Matt, what about your kind of choices for, best foreign imports?
I had loads, really. Just to quickly ring off some on the list, I won't go into any of the reasons why, but I had Schmeichel on there in goal, Zola, Ginola, Drogba, Juninho of Middlesbrough, a lot of people forget about. I mean,
two
obviously,
spells as well.
Two spells there. Fantastic player on a pretty poor team, but he really shone at the time. Di Canio, just used to love the goals he used to score. Anyway, so we won't go into them. I whittled it down anyway. Had about 15 players on there, and in the end,
all did. Look at my list.
It's massive. But I was a bit conservative party about it. But in the end, I whittled it down to two players who I kind of knew would be there, and I had to weigh it up between these two. It's just simply based on the fact that without each other, I feel that the success wouldn't have been as solid and as consecutive as well. So I went with Bergkamp and Henry, and I know exactly which one I am with now, but the reason, if I could go into it a bit more, with Bergkamp, when he first sort of joined Arsenal, he was brought in by Bruce Rioch, who was the manager before Arsene Wenger came in, and that was in 1995, I believe. Struggled in the first year, only scored 11 goals. And to be honest, it kind of became a theme of his entire tenure in the Premier League, where he wasn't known as a goal-scoring striker.
Known as a passer.
Exactly.
Incredible passer.
Brilliant assister. You mentioned it earlier. I think his rate of assist was unreal.
It was a 94 assist in the Premier League,
I think, isn't it? Yeah, which is, I think it was in the top 4. That he was there, and for a striker, that's pretty unbelievable, really.
He pretty much played as a shadow striker. And that goal he scored against Newcastle.
Exactly.
We'll live in the memory of always.
And the hat trick against Leicester City.
Every time I watch that, I have to rewind that about 4 times.
That little flick.
How did he do it? Unbelievable. Sensational stuff.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But and even in speaking of his goals, there was actually 1 year. 1 month, rather than forget 1 year, there was 1 month where he finished first, second and third in the match of the day, goal of the month poll, which is just unbelievable, really. I mean, you've seen some of the goals that are on those things there. To do that in a month is ridiculous. It just tells you the sort of quality he had. And I thought the partnership between him and Henry, who's my other player, was just so complimentary, and the fact that he was able to curl off, do an assist to Henry. Henry had the pace to get in behind defences and then put it away in the most spectacular fashion. So it was just a joy to watch, and that was the main thing that I remember from the Invincible season. You had obviously the Invincible season. You can talk about every area in the pitch, but for me, without those two doing what they did up front.
It was a fundamental partnership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I actually had Vieira on there as well.
Yeah.
Just like we said last podcast about Vieira and our argument between Vieira and Keane, I gave up Vieira for Keane. Even though Keane's Irish.
Technically,
technically.
But we're not going to start all that.
Just over the river.
But I think Vieira as well, you know, for longevity, like we were discussing last time, Vieira for me has to be in the midfield. You know, even with, you know, Xabi Alonso, like, I mean, that guy was. I really liked him for Liverpool.
I thought his passing range and stuff. He was a sensational
long range
midfielder. Definitely,
He matched Beckham's goal, isn't it? Midfield shot.
Honourable mention. Definitely that.
Yeah. And Aaron, who was kind of like your shortlisting?
Yeah, as Matthew would have said, like our list, like we basically went on the way of making a huge list.
Yeah.
And then whittling down slowly. And obviously, when you compare all the stats and you go to the epicenter of the argument of what we're trying to have, which was Alan Shearer saying Aguero was the best ever, I have to go. The top three I picked was Thierry, Cristiano, and Sergio for mine, and I've got written down here all of the trophies which all of them won, and obviously it's just the page is full of you know what they've achieved. So when you're looking at it from every other player, I think that's what stands out to me. It's not obviously the assists and the character of the players matter, but ultimately it's results business, and these three definitely have been the most successful three foreign imports.
Talismanic.
Well, if Aguero didn't score that goal in those dying minutes.
Yes.
To score that goal. But I think overall, like we're talking about Premier League here, but the one player that has won the Champions League over both of them is Cristiano
Ronaldo. Yeah.
So we're not really talking about Champions League, but overall as a player in the Premier League at that time to win the Champions League as well.
It is the be all and end all though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the Champions, when you've won the Champions League and it goes on your CV. It's like
it will be talked about for decades.
Yeah.
It will be talked about for decades when that happens. I mean, Premier Leagues come and go, don't they?
So for me, like Henry, just, you know, I've wrote down some stats here, you know, with like 175 goals, 74 assists in the Premier League. You know, for a player, that's one argument that I have against Aguero. His likelihood in a match to be, you know, egoistic a little bit on the field, be, you know, a bit selfish and try and score the goals all himself. Even though he may play most of the matches as a lone striker without like a Bergkamp, you know, with Henry. I think, you know, Henry for me, well, unquestionably deserves to be the best foreign import of all time in the Premier League.
Could we not argue that strikers need to be a bit greedy though?
Of course, they do. I agree with that. Bergkamp was an exception to all of that. I don't think there's any other striker you can talk about where you would accept his level of goal scoring, because it was not prolific by any means. But I think you're right with that, Aaron. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's what they are there to do. And Van Nistelrooy was never the flashiest type of player. And he was always a running joke of, he needs to be in the 6-yard box, otherwise you ain't going to score.
That's your bread and butter,
to be honest, at the end of the day, who gives a shit? I mean, Lineker was the same.
Raul from Real Madrid was the same.
Exactly, Raul from Real Madrid, and no fan that supported the clubs of that player at the time would ever say, oh, well, he should have done this and he should have done that. Because without those goals, you don't win games. So, do you know what I mean?
Clinical, you know, box man. Van Nistelrooy 100%, and you know that's why we're kind of debating with Van Nistelrooy and so forth.
But I think Henry, you are right to point that out. With Henry, his goal scoring record was as prolific as an Aguero. I know he's got more than Aguero, but as I say, Aguero could easily overtake that if he stays with City or in the Premier League for that matter. But it's everything else he done. So he did do that link-up play, brought other players in, he brought the wings in, the Perez's and the on the other side. So he did that, as well as fantastic finishes, unbelievable skills. The only thing I ever remember him fucking up was that penalty nonsense that he did with Perez.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I really remember that. I do remember that.
Do you know? I'm actually gonna go one thing against Henry in this matter, that may be in favour for Aguero, and it's the team around him. It's a team around him in some aspects.
Yeah, go on.
Because Henry, that Invincibles team was. You know, we were listening to TalkSport in the car, and we were listening to Andy Cole and all those guys. Talking about that
actually
era.
amazing.
Yeah. And the team around Henry was also amazing. Henry was
sorted in that
fantastic.
regard.
He was sorted in that regards. But that team with Aguero, where the Aguero goal, that was a bit high pitch. His team around him wasn't the best. If you know what I'm talking about, he wasn't the absolute best. Like Silva nowadays, I think is better than.
As you said, Man City was a project.
Still,
there's a project.
Multiple projects.
A multiple season project.
I feel like Arsenal, that Invincibles team was the be all and end all, wasn't it? I mean, you had grit, you had muscle, you had literally
everything.
They would scare opponents. You look at the comparing tunnels coming out at Highbury, and the Highbury was like a small tunnel.
Yeah, exactly.
You see Big Tony coming out there, and then you see the other opponents is not walking properly. It was like a really sort of period where Arsenal just they were the dominant team.
I think Henry's physicality also was in his favour because he was really tall.
He could tussle, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could tussle. He was not easy to get off the ball.
Turn a man very easily.
Yeah.
Aguero obviously is.
Do you remember what he did to Fabian Barthez as well?
Oh yes.
With the one touch and then over the top. It was just
Henry's classical finish was he always used to drive onto the left,
and then
open his body, and literally curve it
in.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I remember trying to emulate him playing football in school. Do you know what I mean?
He was the player that you watched.
It was.
I think you're completely right. I think obviously for me it would be Henry, Bergkamp, and Ronaldo without Aguero. Maybe Aguero in the top 5 probably. So I don't know. It's a hard decision. It's a hard decision.
The reason why I probably have to push Aguero's agenda a bit as well on this is because of obviously the goal to win the Premier League. Because it was if you look at the way it was, United at Old Trafford was celebrating the title, and it was literally 30 seconds away from and the rivalry between the two teams.
Yeah.
So we think we're going to lift the trophy. And then everyone in the stadium's looking at their phones at QPR, and then he just goes and does that. And the magic of that moment, I think, has literally propelled him in folklore in the Premier League as well. And it actually puts him never on par, but he has to be put in there.
He's put in there, but
But why were you upset about it?
The reason why I'm upset is because
you were fuming at Shearer.
Yeah, I was fuming.
We need to get this out. This is
the reason I was fuming at Shearer is because Shearer made the statement without giving any consideration to other top players. Or how can you actually leave out Henry? I don't know. It's stupid.
I don't really think he
really
did, though,
idiotic.
David. I think
it's idiotic beyond belief.
He's one of the best strikers of all time in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Anyway. So his opinion is going to make waves, whatever he says anyway. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's not the case. I think he was wrong. Do you think from stats-wise, but...
Do you think maybe, it might be, I may be way off here, but do you think maybe he doesn't really like to attribute players that were actually his rivals when he was playing?
That's a good
because we're forgetting that. We're forgetting that.
Yeah,
I mean, especially with Arsenal. And again, I might be way off here, but especially Arsenal. I do remember, FA Cup finals where obviously Arsenal were the ones that fucked up Newcastle. I don't know. I might be way off, but maybe he's got a bit of a bee in his bonnet about that. I don't know.
There's an agenda there.
Maybe.
I honestly, the reason for me is that Shearer had to play against, our golden era of football which was that late 90s, early 90s Premier League.
He was the face of the new Premier League, wasn't he? Really?
Exactly.
For time.
Exactly.
Like,
and what I was giving an argument like earlier, what I was saying earlier, is the defenders of that time. Do you honestly think, like I've got one player here, Stam, do you think Aguero, if he came up against like a Stam in a match, I think Stam would have had his fucking head off in a second. He would have clamped his legs and injured him. And knowing Aguero's injury record.
But also, if you want to be that facetious though, I can go, could Stam keep up with the way that modern football has gone? It's got a lot faster from the Stam's day.
Yeah.
It's not the same sort of like...
But referees protect players more these days as well than previous days.
So that goes in maybe...
Henri's favour as well.
Henri's favour, definitely.
That goes
on
in Henri's favour,
exactly.
But obviously, so...
I take your point with the speed element. I mean, there is defenders now where, I mean, someone like Per Mertesacker, for example, would be a top 10 defender back in the 90s. Like, absolutely no doubt about it.
I agree with that.
Unbelievable attributes defensively, but his pace is what made his defensive line at Arsenal suffer so much.
Yeah.
And that's where they used to get caught out so often, you know what I mean, when he was there.
And I'll go with this philosophy as well, sort of thing, like looking at the footballers, right, especially of like maybe Spanish or South American ilk or whatever. And I'll attribute this to like maybe Fernando Torres and David Silva and Aguero.
Fabregas,
they seem to have this like sort of like aerodynamicness about the way that they approach the football. And it's like they're always on the half turn. They're always
they look around before they even receive the ball and all that.
Yeah. And that has to be attributed to it. But Henri was doing that from 2004. Do you know?
Exactly.
It is. He is, man. He is the best foreign import. Definitely. I think Shearer's wrong on that one.
Yeah. I agree. I'd say we're nearly all unanimous on that. I don't know about you.
I like a lot of footballers mentioned, like Thierry Henry. I mean, who would argue? Who would argue? You know, I think Thierry Henry is the best Premier League player of all time. Of all time, regardless of foreign import.
Yeah.
He's the best Premier League player of all time. Just because. Who's he managing now?
He was purportedly going to manage Bordeaux, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Bordeaux, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I think his footballing brain, generally on the field, was the best.
I think he showed a lot of character during the World Cup as well as assistant manager.
Belgium, 100%. I think. But the one thing with Henri is that obviously him and Bergkamp were in tandem together. They were just like, they could probably imagine what the other person was
It was no York and Cole.
No, it wasn't York and Cole. No, York and Cole. No, it was not York and Cole.
Or even the bench version of Teddy Solskjaer. It wasn't even that.
Matches made it in heaven.
But I think Henri. Henri was just he just glided on the pitch. He just made he made the pitch look. I think it was a pundit that said that Bergkamp, if he ran on the field on snow, he wouldn't leave footprints.
You think Steven Gerrard said that?
Dance around the floor.
Exactly.
BT Sports,
exactly. And it was.
Or did he say that about Suarez? I think he said that about Suarez.
I think it was Bergkamp.
Was it? I'm sorry, I'm not going to be controversial.
We have to check this out. Leave in the comments.
We'll put a little comment at the bottom. We'll find out what it is.
But Henri, I think.
But I think it's applicable to.
As an all-round player, and Henri used to come back as well. He used to also make tackles in midfield to actually receive the ball.
So we can talk about the captaincy aspect of him as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's this massive problem in football at the moment, I would say fundamentally, which the pundits always pick up on with the big teams or even the mid-range teams, the lack of leadership on the pitch.
Exactly, 100%.
And when you've got Arsenal in Henri's period had about 10 leaders on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
The same with United.
Chelsea at the minute, I would say, a couple of years of that. All the big teams are lacking those leaders. Probably.
Like Didier Drogba was a massive character in that Chelsea.
He nearly had to come in with a shout in this list as well.
He did. He was on the list. But with Chelsea, they probably had about 3 or 4 captains on the pitch at all times during their most successful period. Carvalho, Drogba,
John Terry,
Lampard,
Petr
Cech as well. That's 5 people that you could have as your captain, whereas you can't say that now. Really.
What I wanted to say though is that even though we've kind of unanimously made the decision that Henry is probably the best.
Unilaterally. That's why I throw that one in.
That's it. That Henry's the best foreign import. I think what Shearer done wrong was that he just automatically went to strikers and didn't actually whittle it down like us and say, okay, so I had Van der Sar as my favourite goalkeeper of the Premier League era, even though you probably had Schmeichel.
I had Schmeichel.
Exactly.
Well.
I had Stam as a
that's
defender.
also coming from the best striker of the Premier League era as well.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of like strange validity to what he said.
Yeah.
If he's convictionally saying it, then some people go, "Oh, Alan Shearer, that's right."
Yeah, exactly.
How can you go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. We even had hosts of players. I'm just going to go for a list.
You're going to do some honourable mentions.
Just honourable mentions. Like we had all. I think we all had Di Canio.
Paolo.
West Ham.
Oh,
West Ham.
Mamma mia.
Which name?
I'm doing it now. The accents. You realise that? I don't know. They lost in the game. You remember? Did you see the video? What's that? Brighton Man United. When I was talking about Chicharito.
What's Chicharito?
No, Brighton Man United, that fan that I interviewed.
Yeah, the Mexican guy.
Yeah, exactly, Mexico. And I went West Ham. So we all had Di Canio.
Yeah.
Obviously we had Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo will come second.
Cristiano is definitely second.
On my list.
Definitely second.
He was there with me.
And probably us, bergkamp, and maybe you, Aguero, third.
To be fair,
on this road,
see, you're trying to get me there. That was heavy. There,
rude.
There, right? Rude vanished. Like honestly, all right. You done me there. I didn't like that, right? Because I'm just literally, you came to me the other day and said you highly disagree with the fact that Shearer and Aguero, statistically, from what I've written down and all of us have written down, it's clearly that these three are the best.
Yeah.
But I didn't say they were favourite though. My favourite list is different, but statistically,
I think on a favourite, that's it. But on a favourite list, you would get players like Di Canio and Juninho. Obviously, played for Borough,
and they would
respectively.
There will be podcasts for these guys in the future.
Yeah.
Don't you worry.
So look out for that.
But doing a whole 2-hour section for Juninho. No. So we're all talking about honourable mentions. We were just on Di Canio.
Yep.
And Juninho, of course, for the Borough. And I think we obviously just come up to the roundup that, we all made our decision that Henry, Thierry, Daniel.
Yep, absolutely.
Thierry, Daniel, Henry
is the greatest foreign import and the best foreign Premier League player of all time.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
100% agreed. Perfect. And Shearer, you're wrong on that one.
Yeah. Well, it was a good shout, but you're wrong.
You're wrong, mate.
Still love you though.
Yeah, we still love you.
Yeah, 100%.
I like his haircut.
Yeah.
Same as yours, I think. You got the same barber?
Similar. Yeah. It's called the Barber of Mum.
What kind of clippers?
You've gone for a 2005 Shearer look.
Absolutely, yeah.
The old. You used to do that celebration in school.
Every goal I scored, I used to go like that in school. Love Sir Alan.
Yeah. Move like Henry, celebrated like Shearer.
So just to round up, of course, we decided about that Henry. Again, best foreign import. We're pretty much going to do more podcasts. I think our next one is going to be, we were discussing about the best English-based Premier League player. Not Premier League player, the best English-based team.
Our English 11.
Our English 11, basically, with the Premier League.
I'm going to get some major
Premier League or
Premier
League?
Just 92 to current.
Yes.
Exactly. 100%,
There's going to be a few Stevie Stones in there.
Your Palisters, your Bruces.
We're going to give Shearer a striker already, I think, on that one.
Well, that's a good shout.
Pretty much.
Very true.
It's going to be. We're going to have to do our research. It's going to be a hard one there.
It will be tough. We'll have to have a bench as well because I'm going to feel hard leaving out Robbie Fowler in that, but I can see it already happening.
Robbie Fowler.
It's getting.
It's already started.
Getting in a tizzy already.
Or Carl Even.
He's straight in the first 11. You know that, mate. You know that much.
Okay. Carl Lieben, can you come on one of our podcasts, please?
I would love that.
Please.
I would love that.
We're going to get Matthew to write a really
a heartfelt
letter to you.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
Lewisham's finest.
Has he got Twitter?
I haven't actually checked.
And Instagram.
I don't know. I've seen him come to a few Wimbledon events. So if I'm at the club and I see you, Carl, then
well, we're probably going to go to Wimbledon versus Charlton.
Yeah, do you know what? Out of all the games that Carl Leaburn is going to be at, that is the game that he would be at because he's a Charlton hero as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So 100%. I reckon he'll be there. I reckon he will be there.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, we were in discussion actually, very cool discussion with AFTV about facing them in a 11 versus 11 football match. And yeah, we're kind of emailing bouncing back and forth, of course, on that one. We're looking for a great 11 side to play against AFTV. We pretty much got an 11 side, but we just need to find the right players in those slots.
So Carl, if you're watching, jump in on that as
well.
We've got space in the back of the car for you, mate.
Yeah, we're getting a vein.
Yeah. I need to get fit. As you can see, I'm wearing a Greek t-shirt for the UEFA Nation Leagues that are coming up next month, September. Yeah.
Looking forward to that. We will definitely be
one of the
thereabouts on the games. Yeah, definitely. Especially
I think we definitely have to go to Wembley for England versus Spain.
Yeah, of course.
That is pretty much kind of like split between me.
You mean the Spurnabout?
The Spurnabout expression we'll say. Yeah.
Santiago Spurnabout, bro.
Yeah. We're not going to be doing obviously fan cams this week because. We're pretty much tied up. I was tied up with work myself.
We're fucked, basically.
We were fucked, completely. We were all tied up with work, but we're looking to, pretty much. We're actually looking to, to make a deal with a sports bar in London, which is really cool, where we can go to sports bar and new fans can come along. People, subscriber community can come along and appear on FanChatTV. Appear on FanChatTV, and we're looking obviously to do a little more fan park lives with good old Terry.
Terry's
a legend.
So I think we're going to round up the podcast by saying well done, Henri. You won our
Thierry,
best,
Daniel, Henri.
Best
you're God amongst men, and
thank you for the music.
Anything you got to say, guys? Anything in regards to the Premier League season or anything that you want to mention?
Obviously, we've got Manchester United against Tottenham tonight.
I'm not going to watch that.
Yeah, we're probably going to watch that. We actually could do a fan cam, but we don't know yet. We're not doing.
There's nobody here to do it with, but as you might have guessed.
Up United, and hopefully we can reconfigure our form and get a decent result against Tottenham today.
I love the Flamengos.
I went for the Flamengos for the podcast today, so
yeah, that's nice, mate.
Cheers. Let's give them a full view. Primark's finest.
Yeah.
I went there yesterday and spent about 30 quid and got about 30 things. Pretty amazing place.
See you in a Primark near you.
Yeah, see you in a Primark near you. Everybody's at Notting Hill. That's why the pub is actually really empty if we zoomed around. Everybody's at Notting Hill Carnival today.
Yeah, of course.
Getting drugged up.
All bags. Yeah. Isn't it the family bags today?
It's that. Was that?
Was that yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I'm not sure. I don't really do carnival, so.
No. Last time we went, it was
an absolute rigmarole. I fucking hated it.
As soon as we got there, as soon as we got out the station, we went, fuck this, straight back to.
We had a sandwich in Pret and said, fuck this.
That was our carnival. A sandwich in Pret, the least carnival thing you could possibly do, and we done it.
Couldn't even find a jerk stand, but anyway.
Okay. Well, guys, we're about to round up this podcast, so please make sure you like this video, subscribe to FanChatTV, and make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social media channels. So, Aaron, Matt,
Laters,
David, peace, guys. We'll see you at the whistle, as you would say, Matt.
That's it.